Spoiler alert! You can see at the beginning of Season 4 that while there is still plenty of action and violence, the shocking moments are starting to become rote. While Department of Dirty Tricks is a perfectly good start to the season, this may be the only debut that hasn't made me eager for the remaining 7 episodes. Although I love the hour of TV, I didn't feel the need to start the next episode right away. Welcome to Movie Spy. At least 6 months after the conclusion of Season 3, and not too long after the conclusion of the first season of the spin-off Gen V, the episode opens in media residential during an election night mission. This may be the finest opportunity for the boys to take the field because newly elected Vice President Victoria Neuman is preoccupied with victory speeches, but Billy Butcher is still a liability because of the illness that temp-V induced in his brain. It has gotten to the point that Butcher is experiencing hallucinations and having chats with his deceased wife, but his comrades are still unaware of the reality. Nevertheless, he's essentially the same old Butcher in all except disguise, more obstinate and conceited. In addition, he is consumed with a custody dispute in which the child's soul is involved. Although the timeline of this show is often a little off, and Cameron Crovetti's yearly growth spurts don't help with the disparities, I'm not sure how old Ryan is supposed to be at this point. Nevertheless, I think this story is interesting. That eerie smile from the finale shows how much Homelander has infiltrated Ryan's psyche and influenced his moral compass, but you can also see that Ryan is beginning to feel uncomfortable about constantly being by his biological father's side. Despite Homelander's constant reminders that people are only toys for our amusement, Ryan's empathy is still mostly present for the time being. Butcher undermines the election night operation by approaching Ryan and providing a means of escape, which prompts Homelander to give him a snide 6 months to live diagnosis. The plan then collapses even worse when Zoe, Newman's daughter, who was exposed to Compound V in the previous season, discovers what's happening and opens her mouth to release 4 deadly snakes, killing 2 agents from Dakota Bob Singer's security detail. Yes, Dakota Bob, the incoming president, is collaborating with Grace Mallory and the boys. This is an astute move. They needed a victory after witnessing how severely our main characters were smacked around the previous season, so it's great to see that they've at last found a powerful friend. It makes sense, which is another reason it works. Newman is now 1 step away from being president, so it's only a matter of time until she cracks Bob's skull and has her Frank Underwood in the Oval Office moment. Before Congress approves the election on January 6th, she needs to be stopped. I'm curious how the authors selected that date. Huey and Newman do have a much-needed talk as a result of the disastrous operation. The absence of resolution on some of the more significant emotional ramifications of the larger plot points plagued me greatly in Season 3, particularly with regard to this particular pairing. Although Huey and Newman developed a genuine and convincing friendship based only on a few casual exchanges, Huey never dealt with the betrayal he felt upon learning the truth about his friend and boss, and Newman was never given the opportunity to clarify herself. At last, Huey confronts Newman in this scene for making her daughter into a monster and, more significantly, for hiding so many significant secrets from someone she considered family. The 2 subsequent assassination attempts, Huey dousing her in acid and Butcher shooting her in the head, are very pitiful, but Newman chooses to threaten the lives of everyone Huey values rather than take direct revenge. Though the boys takes this path much too frequently, pretty much every time an enemy acquires power, the writers can counter it with a clumsy death threat or blackmail. The scenario succeeds in its intended purpose. The majority of the remainder of the episode is devoted to presenting each of the season's unique subplots. A few of them mesh quite naturally into the more expansive framework that the season is establishing. For example, Annie January would like to publicly support the Starlighters but finds it difficult to make a difference unless she dons the iconic Starlight outfit once more. When she appears in public in the courthouse later in the episode, it feels appropriate, but it's evident that her journey to reclaim her true identity is far from over. And as usual, Butcher's ongoing moral journey is at the forefront, with his old military buddy Joe Kessler, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, acting as the latest devil on his shoulder. His abuse of V-24 brought him to this point, but Kessler reframes his thinking, suggesting that perhaps his biggest mistake was letting his focus stray by sparing Homelander to protect Ryan. With Mother's Milk as the current leader, Butcher feels useless. He only has months to live, which isn't nearly enough time to accomplish everything he wants to do for his family or the Earth. In any case, Ryan needs to remain safe from harm's path in case Butcher decides to retry Homelander, maybe after the Godalkin University-created supervirus becomes sufficiently potent. In case you missed the ending of Gen V, during the mid-credits scene, Newman found the virus and took the samples. Later, Butcher found the lab where it was studied. Thankfully, Butcher decides against carrying out his second deal with the devil, offering Huey's information on Newman's early years at the Red River Institute in exchange for Ryan's safety. Even if Butcher's morality is still up for debate, it would be quite disheartening to go back to the well of undermining Huey at this moment. Some of the other story threads seem a little, not random, but cut off from the overall scheme of things. Frenchie's codependent relationship with Kimiko prevents him from fully committing to a relationship with Colin, a man he met in Narcotics Anonymous and who currently works at Starlight House. With some kind words of support from Kimiko, he he had conquered that obstacle at the end of the show, but something about the circumstances still seems to be bothering him. After he and Colin finally get into bed together, he notices something about Colin's family in a picture. I do wish that Frenchie and Kimiko weren't constantly so isolated, but it could be interesting to go deeper into his past. This season, Huey's father is hospitalized and in a vegetative state following a stroke. There are some poignant moments in this, particularly when Huey hears his father's voicemail and decides that, if he survives this, he won't take Hugh Sr.'s lengthy tirades against James Patterson for granted. Although the introduction of Huey's mother, Rosemary DeWitt, has impacted many aspects of his life, I'm not sure if I care about it all. That being said, there is a lot of potential here, particularly in relation to Homeland's midlife crisis. He and Stormfront had a fascinating dynamic in Season 2, but we've never quite seen the man crave pushback like he does now, with the absences of Starlight and Queen Maeve leaving a void in the Seven. Since no one is willing to challenge Homelander anymore, he seeks out Sister Sage, Susan Hayward, a soup whose power is simply being the smartest person in the universe. The perfect opportunity presents itself: the verdict in Homelander's trial. As he pointed out to Neuman early on, it's basically a formality. This man is not going to prison, especially with a bullshit self-defense claim to shield him. So, with Sage's assistance, Homelander puts a plan in motion: invite 3 of his biggest fans to meet him before the verdict, including Todd, the reactionary ex-boyfriend of Marvin's ex-wife, kill them, show up to the courthouse, spread discord, and then stop. Fuel the rivalry between the home teamer and Starlighta protesters, then hold the Starlightas accountable for the murders of the supporters. And it works well, condemning Janine, Marvin's daughter, to an extremely depressing morning talk. All of this is a clear political allegory that refers to outside agitators and a certain uprising from a few years ago. In fact, this season's show seems to be drawing more parallels between Trump and Hillary, to the point where we might have to abandon the term allegory and substitute faithful retelling, but with superheroes. The first episode of Department of Dirty Tricks is a little disjointed, and it doesn't really accomplish anything to persuade me that, even with Kripke's wishes, this program could last for more than 5 seasons. However, it's comforting to know that the conclusion is in sight and that I'll be here with you all to unpack at least one more season.